Hello all, we're going to do another video for you today. We're going to be using one of our latest releases, the Dream Blossom, and one of our new stencils, which is called Knitted Blanket. So let's have a look at what we're going to be using. Let's get started here. Flip over to this. Oh, hit the right button. Oh, I'm sorry, you're going to keep getting my arm in it, and I'm trying really hard not to. I keep forgetting which hand I need to use so I don't go across the camera. So here we go. So we have back in stock our foam squares, which we will be using today. They are 25mm by 25mm by 2mm thick, and you get 1600 on a roll, so a long time supply of those. So they're finally back in stock with us. So let's have a look at what we're going to be using. So we have got our Dream Blossom stamp, we've got our Knitted Blanket DL Slimline stencil, we've got clean colour pens, Distress Oxides, Versafine, crystal clear embossing powder, our blending brushes, and our glue. So we'll take a closer look at these, shall we? So as I said, we're going to be using Dream Blossom. It's a really large stamp. It's roughly, probably about 6-7 inches, something like that. About 6 inches, I reckon. Let's have a quick look. Never actually measured the actual, well, I have once, but it was a long time ago. Just over 6 inches long. So it's a big stamp. Then we've got Let Your Dreams Blossom. And we're also going to be using the Knitted Blanket stencil, which is a DL slimline stencil. We've just launched 14 new stencils in our latest release. The Knitted Blanket was one of them. We've also got zebra print, we've got the cubes, we've got Secret Garden, we've got Falling Leaves, which is limited stock. I think we're on single figures with Falling Leaves now. Spirals, Forestry, and Abstract Leaves. We also released our first standalone stencils. So we've got Lily, and with each of our standalone you get them in the 2 sizes on on one stencil. And then we've got Reach for the Stars. Again, this one is almost down to single figures, I believe, on that one. We have Corner Rose. No, that's not Corner Rose at all, that's Rose Bouquet. That's Corner Rose. Beautiful Bouquet, and Numbers. So as I said, you get all three, all of them come with the 2 sizes on them. So we will now have a closer look at the other bits we're using. So we've got the crystal clear embossing powder and our black Onyx Versafine ink. We're using Distress Oxides, Shaded Lilac, Twisted Citron, and Tumbled Glass. We've got our sticky glue that comes in the 2 sizes, so we've got 120mm or 30mm. Let's get these out of the way as we're going along, and then we won't get in too much of a muddle when we start doing this. Then we have also got our clean colour pens, and they are in, let's list them. So we've got Cool Grey, the blending pen, I'll show you how that one works a little bit more, it's a completely clear pen. Lilac, Violet, May Green, Olive Green, Yellow Green, Light Blue, and Deep Blue. So it is a few different colours, but again, you'll see as we're going along, you don't have to use all those colours, just use colours you've got, or if you don't want to use as many, you don't need to use as many. Now, as far as the brushes go, I have a brush for each sort of colour family. So I have one for the greens, one for the pinks, one for the purples, one for the blues. And then I have a separate brush for each different type of ink. So I have a brush for my Versaclares, I have a brush for my Versafines, I have a brush for my Distress Oxides and my Distress inks. That one I'm particularly strict about. I do not mix those 2 brushes together. They just don't work so great if you get those caught up. So I avoid doing that. So let's get ourselves going here with what we need for our for our demo. Got too much stuff around, look, too much stuff. So we need an 8x8 card. We need an 8x8 card, which, as you will know, the cards I use, the envelope is the 8x8. These are slightly smaller. Then we have a piece of cardstock that I'm going to be using to stencil onto, and then I'm going to cut that down to size. So that's just a piece of white cardstock. And then you will also need a couple of little offcuts, and I always keep the bits I've trimmed off for this type of thing. to do your sentiments. So I've just done Let Your Dreams Blossom on 2 separate ones. And if you look closely, I've just done this in advance so we don't have to do it. I very, very lightly stenciled the stencil through with the colours on there as well, just to carry it all the way through the theme. So our black cardstock, we have one piece which is 3 5/8 by 7 5/8. I know you will hate me for my eighths, but that's the size of my card, so that's what causes the problem. And obviously we're going to cut our stenciled piece to layer onto here to match. I may have already done that already and ahead of ourselves, but hey ho. And then we need another piece of black cardstock, which is 5 by 5 5/8 by 6 5/8. Again, that's a bit of a strange size for me, but it will all make sense when we get there. And then we have a piece of watercolour cardstock, and this one is 5.5 by 6.5 inches. And I tend to use most watercolours have 2 different sides to them, and one's slightly smoother than the other, and I do try and use the smoother side when I'm doing this particular piece, or any of my colouring pens really. So I'm going to take my lovely clean stamp. Obviously it's not very clear. I'm terrible for cleaning stamps. I shouldn't admit to that, but I am terrible for cleaning stamps. So I'll be honest with you. We're going to take our Versafine and we're going to ink this stamp up. This is a big stamp, and it takes a lot of ink, and I do tend to give it extra pressure just where it's really solid black, because I want that solid black image. I don't want it to be a bit wishy-washy. So plenty of ink. I just managed to get some ink on my finger, so we'll rub that off, because you know that's going to go a million miles, don't you? And we'll just carry on inking that. And as I say, quite a lot of the time, you need to make sure you've got plenty of ink on your stamp. If your stamp doesn't stamp out, it's not because 9 times out of 10 it's not because it's a problem with the stamp. 9 times out of 10 it's because either your ink is dry, an older ink, or you just haven't put enough ink on it. So we're going to pop this down and stamp this out as in the middle as I think I can get it from looking from the angle I'm at. And we're going to keep pressing down, and as I said, I put extra bit of pressure where it's really dark. I'm going to apologise now. As soon as I've started filming this video, I think the whole neighbourhood's teenagers that have just all got their mopeds have decided that they're going to join me. So hopefully they'll get bored in a few minutes and go off and do their own thing. So as I said, lots and lots of pressure, added pressure, just where it's really solid black. And I find that really does help. And a few people have said they've worked out that if they just stand up for the few seconds it takes to stamp these images out, the bigger ones, they have much more success with them. So they're just a few tips that have come back our way. And then we're going to pop our embossing powder all over the stamp. Shake the excess off. And pop that back into the pot. Now you'll notice I didn't give it a good flick, or like I would normally suggest you did with embossing powder. Versafine doesn't particularly like embossing powder, so you need to be quite gentle with it. So I just give it a light tap, which takes all the excess off, and it sticks where the powder is. So I'm going to heat from underneath, and again, the reason I do this is because it puts a barrier between my heat gun and the powder, and it allows the powder to melt without blowing the embossing powder off where we want it to be. So just bear with us. It's a big stamp. It'll take a couple of minutes for me to do this, and I'll be truthfully honest, I have no clue how to speed this up. So we'll just go with it for a minute. Bear with me. So you need to get your heat gun as hot as you can, and if you're not happy heating from underneath, you don't have to. It's just my personal preference for this particular technique. You've all seen me do this 1,000,001 times. If you do heat from underneath, do be careful, don't go too close to it, because it can burn the paper, which you don't really want to happen. And mind your fingers, it gets very hot under there. As you can see, we're just going to go along and heat that up. I don't think it matters how many years you've been doing embossing and crafting. Every time this changes, it still fascinates us all, doesn't it? It's mesmerising. I think I do need to learn how to speed this up though, because you don't really need to watch me do all this heat embossing. But hey ho, that's where we're at the moment. Almost there. And we'll just put that off to one side. Just be careful where you do put your heat gun down, because obviously it gets hot, and if you're going to put it down on top of a load of plastic or something that you don't want ruined, allow it to cool down a little bit before you do that. So just while the paper's still warm, I'm going to just give that a little bit of a wiggle to bring it, to take its shape back. Now, if you're not in any hurry and you've heat embossed something, put it to one side and leave it for a little while. And quite often you'll find that the paper just relaxes itself anyway, and it will come up flat. If you're in a hurry, it doesn't matter. But if you're in a hurry and it's giving you trouble, i.e. you're trying to lay it flat on a piece of paper and it's got a few kinks in it, put some foam pads on underneath and nobody will know any different, instead of sticking it flat. So there's another little tip for you. So as I say, it would just give that a little bit of a wiggle. So we're now going to do some colouring with our Distress Oxides and our brushes. I lied. I'm not going to use Distress Oxides and brushes on this. I'm using my pens on this. Oh, good grief. I'm not concentrating. We're using pens. We'll come back to the oxides in a moment when we're doing the stenciling part of this. So we've heat embossed. We're going to take our pens first. So I'm going to pick up my dark blue, I think it's deep blue it's called actually, deep blue and light blue to start with. And we are just going to go in and we're going to take the dark colour just along the centre, really lightly. You hardly need any of it, the tiniest amount. And then you're going to take your pen. Now I do tend to work petal at a time, but that is entirely your choice. And you're just in circular motions pulling that dark colour out. Now if you find you get too much dark on your brush and that you don't get the colour blend, I'm going to show you a close-upper in a minute. Let's do on to the next. Let's go on to the next petal. Right, so check me out trying to do this in midair. Tiniest little bit across the bottom there of the dark blue. Sorry, I know you've got my whole hand in the screen and that's not very pleasant. Then you, in circular motions, pick up that darker colour and come out. See how that brings the colour out to here? But as it starts to wear off the nib of your lighter colour, you'll get your fade and your shading through there. Now I would quite like that to have a little bit more of the shade coming through. So I'm going to go in with a bit more of the dark, and I'm just going to, again, circular motions, bring that blue up and through. If you get too much dark on your brush, on your lighter colour, just wipe it onto a piece of kitchen paper. So again, darker colour across the bottom. Take your light blue or your lighter colour, whatever colour you're going with, and pull it out. Now if you look here, I've got too much dark coming out there. So I've got too much dark on the nib of my lighter colour. So I'm going to go in, take some of that lighter off and back in over the top. My light blue is very, very well loved. I think I need to start maybe treat my myself to a new one sometime soon. Now remember I said we had that blending pen. If it comes on there too dark for what you want, take your blending pen and go in and pick up some of that colour. Again, it will load itself onto your blending brush. So remember, piece of kitchen paper, and that will take that colour off. See how the nib of the brush, oh, I went in too quick, look. Take it up to the here, look how the nib of the brush has gone blue. Just wipe it onto some kitchen paper and the nib of the brush is clear again. So you just keep working your way round, a little bit of the blue, and the reason I do, I work it like I do a petal at a time, is because that way I get the shading evenly across all of my petals rather than a block all the way across. That won't look particularly special. I'm not going to go in and colour all of these. I'm just going to show you quickly how we do the leaves, because I have already done this, because otherwise we would be here for an hour colouring this in. No, not an hour, probably 20 minutes to colour this. As far as the leaves go, I don't want it to be a complete matte finish on the leaves. So I take, this one is the May Green, and I'm going to work kind of the same way as I did with the other two. I've put two different colours down. I'm also going to take, this one is the olive green, and I'm just going to whip that across there really, really lightly, and then back in with my lighter pen, and I'm just going to pull those colours all together. Circular motions, remember. Up some of that darker down the bottom and draw that up. Now again, if you wanted that to be darker further up, pop a little bit more dark in there and just play with it until you're happy with the colours that you've pulled together. The one thing I've forgotten to tell you, obviously we've used embossing powder on here, so it will form a resist, so the ink that you might have managed to get onto here will sit on there. So remember, every so often go in and blot it, because if you don't do that, you are 100%, as I say, that's how much ink came off there, look. You will 100% smudge this. Again, it's not a biggie if you do, because if you're really clever with that, either with a water brush, clean water brush, or with that blending brush, if you do make a mistake, you can pick some of it up, but you don't want to do that unless you really have to. And I've done that all the way across, and randomly I decided I was going to have one that was a different colour. If you look, all of these are a similar flower, or are a flower, and then we've got a random lily here. So I'm going to go in with my lily and pop a little bit of the violet down. And then this one is lilac, and I'm just going to pull out some of that colour. Now I want a bit darker than that, so I'm going to go in and put a little bit more dark down, because I thought it would just look quite effective having one random colour here. And I'm going to just take that a little bit further through there. So you're just going to build this up, like I said. I always start either down at the centre or on one particular side, and work on one petal or one leaf at a time, unless they're particularly tiny, and then that will definitely give you time. But otherwise the ink dries, as well as not allowing you to have that shading through the flower that I like to get. So hopefully I'm making sense to you. Now, if you watch this video and you have any questions, you can email me on honeydewcrafts@gmail.com, or you can come over, onto our Facebook page and send us a message on there, or we have recently launched, if you haven't already heard about it, our closed group page, which is called Honeydew Crafts Be Inspired, BEE Inspired. So, sorry, I'm randomly going off what I'm doing here, but I just wanted to let you know that you can still ask us questions even though this isn't a live video. So please don't feel you can't do that. So then I've just gone in with my blending brush, and I've taken some of the darker out. I felt it was just a little bit too dark, and so I've just worked that out a little bit and picked that up. So we're getting there slowly, we're building that up, and eventually, oh, before I show you the finished piece, I've also got the cool grey, and this is number 099, and all I did with the cool grey was go all the way around the edge, and it hardly looks like I've even done anything when I do this, but it just somehow seems to ground the image. Again, be careful when you do this, particularly if you've gone over the edges anywhere, and I've just found a little spot that I have, and I can show you what I mean. If I can come in closer on the camera, you can see my grey line going all the way around here, and it's just started to make this colour here bleed in. It doesn't really show up hugely on the camera, but just be aware of that if that happens, to just be conscious of where you may have gone over first. So when you have finished doing all your colouring in, you need to layer it onto that piece of black cardstock I told you about. This piece is 5 5 5/8 by 6 5/8 cardstock, and all I did was layer it, colour it in. As I say, you can see very light faint border all the way around, just to ground that image. Now I am going to just, so that's the topper part of our image done. I'm just going to clear myself a little bit of space here because I seem to have got a lot of stuff on the table for this. And then I just whacked the camera. That was nice of me, wasn't it? We'll pop this all over to one side. And then we are going to go in and do some stenciling. Now I'm using my Wendy board, as I call it. This is the Make Art Station. I keep mine hanging up, so I have a piece of ribbon that I hold mine together with. So the Make Art Station comes with a magnetic ruler. It's a metal board, a magnetic metal board. And then you get the 4 large magnets. I use these all the time for my stenciling. I don't actually know what I did without it. I don't know why I didn't have one earlier than I did, but I didn't, and now I do. So, and all you need to do is just line your stencil up wherever you want it to be. It has grids on here, so you can, but you can tell how well loved mine is. Look, my grids are starting to wear off. We do use this an awful lot. So 4 corners. And then we're going to use our Distress inks this time with our brushes. And literally all I'm going to do is pick up my brushes. I just scribble on here what colours I use. And then we're just going to randomly go in all over with our brush. Doesn't matter if you go over the edges on this because we are going to trim this down to size, but it just gives you an idea of what we're. Now I don't want every corner to be the same colour, so I'm going to go in and make that a blue corner. And then we have our purples brush, and again just random. If you don't want a dark colour, just tap it on a piece of cotton, or a piece of kitchen paper, or whatever your go-to cleaning is, and just pop all of these in here. Oh, wrong colour. Wasn't concentrating. I'm just wary of how long this has taken me so far. So we're going to go in now with the green, and actually we've already done that corner, so I'm just going to pop in with some green wherever I haven't already been with some colour. And you know, with this particular technique, if you miss an area, it doesn't matter either. That's the nice thing about using stencils, is you can have that faded out look or that bit missing, so you don't have to panic if you do miss something. Right, so I'm just going to lift two sides to see if I'm happy with what I've done, which I am. I might add a little bit more green on this side because it does look a little bit faded here in comparison to the rest of it. Yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to pop these out of the way, put my lid back on my Oxides. I can't believe we've been 25 minutes already. So that's it, easy done, and we're going to cut this down to size. And as I said, there may be one I did earlier. So here we go. Again, I've backed my piece, once I've cut it down to size, to a piece of black cardstock again. And this one is just 3 5/8 by 7 5/8. And I just used the sticky glue, Honeydew Craft sticky glue, to stick those two down. Just pop my board out of the way. It's not going to be needing that. If you're watching this within the next couple of days of me putting this out there, we are out of stock of the boards at the moment, but they will be coming back into stock as soon as possible. So just bear with us on that. So I'm going to stick these two down, as you can see here. Right. And then I'm just going to pop our sentiments just on here. So I'm just deciding whether we're going to overlap it or come in line with it. I think maybe something like that. So just work out roughly where you want them to be. And as I said earlier, I did stamp and emboss these previously. They're stamped with black ink, clear embossing powder, and then really faintly just had that stencil in the background too, so it pulls it all in together. Flip these over and we'll just pop some glue on the back. I love using the stencils like this because it just adds a little bit of interest to a plain card, doesn't it? So I'm going to roughly eyeball that where I want it to be first. How are we looking? Something like that, I think. So we're going to come in roughly around here. Again, the sticky glue on the back. Flip that over. I think that's roughly central and hopefully straight-ish. You can't do that from above. And then I've just popped some foam pads on the back, she says. And then you've all seen me do this previously. I pop a little bit of glue on there, and that just allows me a little bit of wiggle room to put my sentiment down where I want it to be. I think we'll go with that. And the same on here. A little bit of overkill, I think, maybe on my embossing, on my foam pads, but I hate it when sentiments drop down in the middle. It's a pet peeve of mine. I'll flip that one over. I'm going to do that so we've got roughly the same size gap all the way around the edge. So we're kind of lined up with the bottom here, and I've got roughly the same size gap here, here and here, and we'll just pop that down. So that is our Dream Blossoms card. So we used Dream Blossoms and we used our knitted blanket stencil on the side there, just in similar colours to tie it all together. So let's have a look at a couple of other cards that have been used with this particular stamp. So this one's using the Dream Blossoms again with a purple background, and in the very background of this you can see the Leaves and Foliage stamp set that we launched at the same time. This one has been coloured with pencils, And again, this one has had the leaves and foliage stamp set used with it. This one, I've actually cut out part of the flowers, but it's the whole image just cut out separately. So we've got the flowers cut out. The sentiment is from our Infinity stamp set, again one of our latest releases, and in the background is one of our brand new die cut backgrounds called Forest Leaves. This one has just been done onto watercolour card, coloured with pens, but it's been stamped with Versamark and white embossing powder used on it, and again grounded with that grey-blue pen. And last but not least, another lovely card done again coloured with pens, and all the sentiment that's on that one, to a special friend all the way round, is again from our Infinity stamp that was also released at the same time. So I'm just going to quickly run through what we've used again. So we have used a Dream, where are we? Here we go. That's what we wanted. The Dream Blossom stamp. We've used the Knitted Blanket Stencil. We've used Versafine Onyx Black ink. Oh, up the wrong way. We have used Crystal Clear Embossing Powder. We've used Distress Oxides in Tumbled Glass, Twisted Citron and Shaded Lilac. We've used blending brushes. We have used our sticky glue that comes in the 2 sizes. So we've got sticky glue in the 120ml or the 30ml. And then the pens we have used, one small, are our blender. We've used the light blue and deep blue. We've used lilac and violet. We've used the Cool Grey 099, which was what we used to ground it all the way around the edge. And then the greens we have used are May Green, Olive Green and Yellow Green. So that allows you to have the shading on your leaves as well. So let's just pop back in, see what I mean. So it gives you that shading on there. So you can see the colours we've used and our finished product. It takes roughly half an hour, 40 minutes to make this card. Let me bring back to me. Oh, got a rosy face now, look. So I hope you've all enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, either pop a comment on here. You can get us on our Facebook page, or you can also apply to join our closed group. And then we've also got our email address, which is honeydewcrafts@gmail.com, or you can contact us through our website, honeydewcrafts.co.uk. If you have any more questions, let me know. If not, have a lovely day. I hope you enjoyed the demo and we'll be back soon. Thanks, bye.